To the showdown in the Show Me State. Will the gateway to the West lead one of these nominees to the West Wing? Now, live from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, Your World with Neil Cavuto.
Welcome, everybody. And boy, oh boy, if you were thinking that Donald Trump was going to fold under the pressure, and with a lot of Republican stalwarts saying that he should step out of this race, Donald Trump just a short time ago saying that is not his plan. This, despite a growing chorus of major Republican Party power players saying, you're an embarrassment, step down. Now, the devil is in the details, of course, and even if he were to do just that, what does it mean if all of these folks say leave? Because the simple fact of the matter is we have never had a precedent for this sort of thing. And then what happens if they do tell him to leave and he doesn't want to leave? Let's just say sticky wicket. Let's also say in Wisconsin, that big event that Donald Trump was disinvited to, well, they're still speaking. So you're still hearing from some of the top Republicans in that state, including Senator Johnson. We've heard from Governor Scott Walker. And pretty soon we're going to be hearing from Paul Ryan, the highest elected Republican official in the country, who was aghast at the remarks attributed to Donald Trump from more than 11 years ago. Peter Ducey now in Wisconsin on what they're making of this sudden party conundrum. Peter.
And Neil, the latest reaction to Donald Trump's decade-old comments about women is coming from the woman that he's married to, Melania Trump, who just put out a statement where she says that, quote, "The words my husband used are unacceptable and offensive to me. This does not represent the man that I know. He has the heart and mind of a leader. I hope people will accept his apology as I have and focus on the important issues facing our nation and the world." This afternoon, running mate Mike Pence said he was also offended by Trump's talk. Senator John Thune said Trump should drop out and get replaced by Pence on the ticket. Senator Kelly Ayotte says that she's going to write Pence's name on her ballot. So there's a lot of members of Trump's own party piling on. But we did speak to some female voters here in Wisconsin who do not think this should be the main issue of the election.
I don't like it. But that was 11 years ago, and how many men talk like that? You know, if everybody's skeletons were out there, we'd have a lot to be ashamed of.
I'm offended. They were disgusting, but I'm more sad that we're not talking about the issues.
It was 11 years ago. It was behind the scenes. It wasn't done in a debate, and it doesn't bother me, even though I'm a huge women's rights activist. I think Trump's still for women.
And we also heard in the last hour that the Republican National Committee does plan to stop sending mail out to voters, at least temporarily. The thought is that they will resume these mailings once the Trump campaign rights the ship. And it sounds like Donald Trump is figuring out how to do that, because he just tweeted in the last 10 minutes that he will never drop out of the race. Neil?
All right, Peter, thank you very much. Again, we are waiting to hear from Speaker Paul Ryan, who's addressing that same crowd that Governor Scott Walker is, and we'll go back to Peter and the Speaker once that starts happening. In the meantime, this growing chorus among major Republican Party players, establishment players, I might add, and that's something that a lot of Trump loyalists like to point out, that the establishment, never keen on him to begin with, is jumping at this now to say move over. And again, legally, that is anyone's guess whether that can move the needle here, because there is no real precedent for this sort of thing, dumping a nominee at this point. Sean Duffy, a Republican congressman from the state of Wisconsin, I assume still a big Trump supporter, Congressman?
I'm still with Mr. Trump. Neil, let me back up for a second. I have 5 daughters, and what Mr. Trump said is offensive to me and my family. That's not the way I think of women and my wife and my mother and my kids. But I got to tell you this, I never supported Donald Trump because of his positions on women or family. I've never agreed with those positions. I supported Mr. Trump because of his economic positions, how he's going to grow the economy, how he's going to keep America safe, how he's going to secure the border. And frankly, if we're looking at, the Clinton family and the Trump family, I don't think either of them represent America very well. The Clintons are weird, and Mr. Trump has been offensive, and so we're left to come back to the issues that are going to make America great again, and we have to evaluate those issues and what leader can do it, and I still think it's Donald Trump.
All right, so when you say that, you don't think that these other issues that are raised, and you're right, they're 11 years old, comments that suddenly came to light, are now a distraction from that message, and that it's hurting his message?
Oh, no, it's a distraction, and it's most definitely hurting him. But as a Republican and a conservative, where else do I have to go? If I don't have Mr. Trump, am I going to go to Mrs. Clinton, who went after the victims of Bill's sexual aggression, called them out publicly and wasn't supportive of them? One who wants open borders, who wants more taxes, more regulation, allowed for the growth of ISIS. I have no home in Hillary Clinton, so I'm stuck with the only guy that best matches my economic positions and my global ideas, which is Donald Trump. I mean, we're in a tough place.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. But
no, I understand. But there's another plan afoot. I'm sure you're aware. There's another plan afoot to maybe bring another nominee forward, and maybe that could be Governor Pence. I have no idea. But that they're looking at that, but they're coming up kind of without any real clear legal grounds to do it.
Well, I think the Republican Party and conservatives like me will cross that bridge if one is ever put in front of us. But you, leading into my segment, mentioned that Mr. Trump has tweeted he's not going to get out of the race. I don't think he will.
And he is not.
And so
we're not, Congressman.
We're in tumultuous waters.
Watch this very closely.
So we got to figure out how we deal with it.
Here's a guy who might have some ideas. Paul Ryan. Earlier today, he had disinvited Donald Trump to this very event. Listen to what he has to say.
I meant what I said, and it's still how I feel. But that is not what we are here to talk about today. You know what we do here at Fall Fest? We talk about our ideas. We talk about our solutions. We talk about our conservative principles. And we promote our candidates right here in Wisconsin that are fighting for us, candidates like our Senator Ron Johnson. You know, what matters in elections is, are we giving people real choices? 7 people out of 10 people in America, 7 out of 10 people in America, they don't think this country's on the right track, do they? 7 out of 10 people, they think that their kids are going to be worse off in this country. We have never done that before in this country. We have never given the next generation a darker future. We have always stepped up and fixed the problems in front of us in our generation so that our children and our grandchildren can be better off. And you know what? You know what we're doing about it in the House? You know what we're doing about it as conservatives? We are offering people a better way. We are offering solutions. I tell you what, last January we got together, we said, we need to take an agenda to the country. We need to show men and women in America, those 7 out of 10 people, that's not just Republicans, that's not just independents, that's Democrats also. They need to have solutions, and we're offering them. Let me tell you a few things. Number 1, 6 plans. Go to better.gop. 6 things. We have got to get people out of welfare and back into the workforce. Our welfare system isn't working. Our welfare system tells people to stay out of work. We need to get people back into work so they can get on the ladder of life, so that they can reach their dreams. We're showing you exactly what welfare reform looks like. So you know what? Second thing, we are not safe. You know this. You see the terrorist attacks in this country. You see what's going on overseas. We have a President Obama, that is phoning it in on national security. We have a president that has been hollowing out our military. We are showing you exactly what it takes to rebuild our military, to secure our border, to go on offense against ISIS, and to keep America safe. This is important. I tell you what, and if you want to get jobs in this economy, get the federal government out of the business of micromanaging every little aspect of our lives, of our communities, of our society, of our small businesses. We are losing self-government in this country. We've got this new 4th branch of government. Unelected bureaucrats are writing our laws. Look at this. We got a case magnum made right over there in Racine. And you got this Waters of the USA regulation coming from the EPA. It is telling farmers how, where, when, and what they got to do if they want to farm. And these things don't go through Congress. So here's what we're saying. All of these rules and all of these regulations that come from these unelected bureaucracies that don't know our communities, that don't know our people, that don't know our businesses, all of that has got to go through Congress. Congress for a final vote approval amendment before it goes into effect. It's a simple principle. The principle is one of our founding principles. We govern ourselves as Americans. We believe in self-government. The laws that we live under in this country need to be written by us through our elected representatives, not by these unelected bureaucracies. And that is exactly what we're offering. That is exactly what we're running on. That is exactly what we're giving people. Let me tell you what. How many of you think Obamacare is working? I don't think he thinks Obamacare is working either. Obamacare is failing. Biggest health insurance company in the world, in the country, United, they pulled out. Aetna pulled out. This thing is in a death spiral. Premiums are going up double-digit every year. The deductibles are so high you might as well not even have health insurance. We are showing you, first time in 6 years, Republicans have an alternative. It's not just repeal, it's repeal and replace Obamacare with patient-centered health care so we can choose what we want for our families. More choice, more competition, lower prices. And I got to tell you, you are not going to fix this economy. You are not going to grow jobs. You are not going to get economic growth and job creation if you do not scrap this.
All right, we are monitoring Speaker Paul Ryan at this big Wisconsin event. It was to feature Donald Trump today. In fact, they were even considering having Governor Pence with him as sort of a united effort between the establishment and so-called this renegade ticket, if you will. But then those comments came to light of what Donald Trump said 11 years ago. And then all bets were off. The speaker disinvited Mr. Trump, but kept the event going on. Now, you could hear quite a few Trump loyalists in that audience not very pleased with Mr. Ryan and not very pleased that they have ostracized their favorite candidate. But it is what it is, a growing movement now, better than a dozen key players in the Senate and the House, and those who had previously backed Mr. Trump, who now say that he should step aside. Again, I stress, that is easier said than done, and there is no clear historical precedent for that, short of the death of the nominee. And of course, you have heard from Mr. Trump that he has no intention of stepping down. So the fallout from all of this with Democratic strategist Emily Tish Sussman, we got Kathy Lynn Taylor, GOP strategist, last but not least with me here in St. Louis at this fine university, Noel Nickcorp. Noel, this does nothing to help Donald Trump's momentum, but from your vantage point, what is it doing to his potential fundraising?
It's going to hurt him in fundraising, Neil, and the reason why is because any donor that was already on the fence, I actually spoke to someone on the West Coast this morning, and I said, well, give it to me straight. And he goes, I tell you what, Noel, he goes, kiddo, I was going to write a check to him today, and he goes, right now, I don't want my name associated for him. But I asked him this. I said, all right, so you're not going to support him because you don't want your name on the report. And he goes, that's true. I said, but are you going to vote for him? He goes, absolutely. So you can see where there's going to be a disconnect. But then they're going to stay the course, and they're going to vote. Because as Duffy said, what other choice do they have? They really don't.
Well, the hope is among some of those mainstreamers that they come up with a choice. But Kathy Lynn, that might be easier said than done, right?
It might be. Look, the real issue here is the issue of women. We're the largest voting bloc at 52%. And that's your earlier women voters that you had on said it so well, right? For too long, and I write about this in my new book, Red is the New Black, for too long the Democratic Party has hijacked the message to women, and they're going to use this as another example. But the problem is that over the last 8 years, thanks to Obama and Hillary Clinton, and even predating back to Bill Clinton, we have 2 million more women living in poverty, 50% of America's school children.
Kathleen, I don't want to interrupt you. Kathleen, I don't want to interrupt you, but we're looking at Mike Pence. He is leaving Indianapolis now for a fundraising event in Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island, I believe. He also was critical of Donald Trump in these comments, but he wanted to keep the message on the message of that campaign and not give any free passes to Hillary Clinton. But he's under enormous pressure right now as a number of party surrogates are even toying with the idea of having him move forward and step up as the party's nominee. There are no rules in place that would allow that, though. What do you think?
Well, there's no precedent for this. There's been no precedent throughout this entire campaign, if you think about it, the number of unusual things that have happened. But I still think that as a Republican Party, we can find common ground in uncommon times. Mike Pence has done an unflappable job over the course of his vice president candidacy of supporting Donald Trump. I have no doubt he'll find the right path going forward. The main issue is that women have to stop living conservative and voting like Democrats. No matter what the fallout of this is, conservative policies over time have better protected and empowered women, and that's what we have to remember.
You know, Emily, real quickly, do you get a sense, though, that Democrats are getting increasingly alarmed Republicans just might find another nominee? Because this one looks beaten up enough where a lot of you folks seem to think you can easily beat him in the election a month from today. A new guy? Maybe not so much. How do you feel?
Look, yeah, I mean, Trump is staying in this race. He's made that incredibly clear. If there's one thing that we know about Donald Trump is that he is ego and
you want him to
else.
stay in this race, right?
Look, the Republican Party chose their nominee. He is their nominee. This is not Democrat created. He is the Republican nominee. The question now is down the ticket. Every senator, every governor, every member of Congress who has endorsed or at least said they will still vote for him, do you support him and do you think that he would make a good president? You can't just, I know you had Sean Duffy on earlier saying it's the best of both, you know, there's no choice for him. He has to keep supporting him. That's actually not true. If you don't think that he would govern this country well and you don't think that his judgment is there to be able to make the difficult decisions that are in front of a president every day, then find a way to work with Hillary Clinton as president. That is the option in front of all of them right now. They can keep putting up walls. They can keep trying to find a way to say, you know, this was too far just because it's affecting my base now. They're worried that they're going to lose Republican women, independent women, Republican voters across the board who find what Donald Trump has said appalling, as everybody should. And they're trying to find a way to consolidate their base. But this should not be about politics. It should be about the country. This should be about governing.
Yeah, but Hillary Clinton has served no better as an example of governing.
Everything comes back to politics, ladies. But thank you very much, all of you very, very much. So what can be done now if there is this move to try to find an alternative nominee to Donald Trump? The only kind of recent history, and it's not even recent history, 1872, or it's really the Democratic nominee, ends up dying after the election, but before the electors and before the Electoral College met, it was a moot point. Ulysses Grant had essentially already won. That's about the most we can see of the situation. There was also in 1972 when Thomas Eagleton was George McGovern's running mate, even though George McGovern said at the time he was behind him 1,000%. When word came that the senator at the time had undergone shock treatments, there was a quick switcheroo. Out went Eagleton, in came Sergeant Shriver, and that November in came a huge Democratic landslide defeat. So easier said than done to that point. Doug Weed, presidential historian, Ed Rollins, former Reagan campaign advisor, Trump supporter. Doug, there is no precedent for a situation like this where the nominee is neither ill nor dead. So what do you do?
Yeah, that's right. And you mentioned Horace Greeley. He was actually a liberal Republican who broke away from Grant because Grant was corrupt. And the Democrats said, hey, we couldn't do any better, so that's why they supported him. Yeah, this isn't going to happen, and one of the main reasons it isn't going to happen is because of Mike Pence. Mike Pence is in a perfect position. If Trump wins, which seems unlikely at this point, he's vice president. If he loses, he's in the driver's seat next time around, and the more loyal he is to Trump, the better he looks. And let's face it, most of the Republicans, like it or not, they like Trump. So Pence doesn't want to make them angry. And all these other Republicans that are promoting this idea, they want to be president themselves. They're not going to support Mike Pence.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah. You don't want to mess with that, right? We should point out, too, in the case of Horace Greeley in 1872, and of course, Doug can tell you there, he covered that at the time. Kidding. But the election already happened.
They already had 5 years old.
So this was before the Electoral College met, which is a different beast and a different kind of a comparison there. But Ed Rollins, this issue of the fine line that Governor Pence has to walk. Ed Rollins, what do you think of that? Because obviously he has to be furious, which he is, at these comments, and he relayed that in his own. But he doesn't want to go too far, right? So what does he do?
Well, he's a man of principle, and obviously the American public got to see him the other night. He's a very spiritual man, very religious man, been a leader of the evangelical movement, and certainly a potential either vice president or a future presidential candidate for our party. I think the key thing is he's already expressed his outrage. I think his statement is a very measured statement. I'm the father of a 21-year-old daughter, and I have a wonderful wife and three wonderful sisters, and I'm like everybody else. I'm appalled by the statements that were made. Donald Trump has to turn this thing around. He's got to get on the stage tomorrow night, and he's got to eat crow. He's got to do a multiple mea culpa, not talking about all the millions of supporters I have out there that want me to go on. He's got to talk about, I made a major mistake, and I'm in a different place in my life today. I have a wonderful wife. I care very deeply about my daughters, and I apologize to the American public, and I apologize to women everywhere, and you got 30 days to go out and try and make your case on how you can lead this country. If he doesn't do that, then obviously he has two choices. He could wake up as Mr. President on November 9th, or he could wake up as the most despicable Republican candidate in the history of the country. That's up to him. He's got to perform extremely well, which he hasn't since the last debate.
Doug, can he do that? At this point, history suggests, he's overcome these type of issues in the past. This is particularly unique, to some onerous. What do you think?
Yes, he's got time. What makes this a moment bad is the fact that we just now learned about it. That's the only reason it's bad. I mean, You can't compare this to what FDR did to Missy LeHand, or LBJ to Fiddle and Faddle, or to John Kennedy to Mimi Alford, or Bill Clinton to Juanita Broderick. There's no comparison. This is not a big deal, except it's current. We didn't know about it, and that was the danger you have in having a candidate who hadn't run for governor,
By the way,
senator,
you mentioned a difference. There is no comparison. These are words spoken versus, by these gentlemen in these examples, actions taken. It is what it is. We'll have more right after this. All right, I want to share with you right now the powerful Republicans who have sort of distanced themselves. Many of them already distanced themselves from Donald Trump, but then the revelation of this tape from 11 years ago kind of sealed the deal. And in different degrees, they all said, he's not our guy. These are the people who demand that Donald Trump step down. You can see this as well as I can. Senator John Thune, Carly Fiorina, Mark Kirk, Mike Lee, Mike Coffin, Scott Garrett. So you get these were never big fans of Donald Trump to begin with. The next group are those retracting earlier endorsements. That is Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah, Senator Mike Crapo of Idaho. We have former Governor John Huntsman, a former presidential candidate himself. We have Congresswoman Ann Wagner, Congressman Rodney Davis, and on and on. There is a final group here, and those who say, we will just not vote for Trump. Some of them would sooner vote, and fill in the blank with any sort of a name. But they include Governor Gary Herbert, a Republican of Utah, Martha Roby, a Republican of Alabama, John Kasich, of course, the Ohio governor, who never did support Donald. In fact, skipped out on the Republican convention in his own state. And then here's when you know things are bad, when Arnold Schwarzenegger says he can't stand by you. Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, who fathered a child with his housekeeper. That was a big surprise to his wife. Nevertheless, he says that he cannot stand by Donald Trump. So you've hit a sort of a bad patch there, if that is the case. All right, now there's a lot going on here that the Hillary Clinton campaign must be loving, because despite revelation of emails that seem to stand at odds with their public positions on issues like trade and how to get along with the banking community and all of that, it's all getting lost because of the attention focused on Donald Trump and these comments about women 11 years ago. So Jennifer Griffin with the campaign now in Philadelphia. So they must be loving these revelations, right?
Well, Neil, we're here at the debate site in St. Louis, and in fact, the Clinton campaign trying to remain absolutely mum and let this narrative just play out. They don't want to step on the news about the audio tape. What I can say is that the Clinton campaign, in terms of the WikiLeaks leaked emails, they are not willing to authenticate those emails, but they have warned that whoever did hack into the campaign's email account may have also altered some of those emails. This is a quote from John Podesta, quote, "It should concern every American that Russia is willing to engage in such hostile acts in order to help Donald Trump become president of the United States." That from Podesta, whose emails appeared to make up most of the hack. The WikiLeaks emails include excerpts from Clinton's Wall Street speeches. One excerpt from a speech given to Goldman Sachs in 2014 has the header, "Clinton admits she is out of touch." Quote, "Obviously, I'm kind of far removed because the life I've lived and the economic, fortunes that my husband and I now enjoy, but I haven't forgotten it." The speech excerpts also delve into her support for a single-payer health care system like the one in Canada. She also expressed praise for trade deals and open borders. Another discovery, comments she made about the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal. Quote, "My dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders, sometime in the future with energy that is as green and sustainable as we can get it, powering growth and opportunity for every person in the hemisphere," Clinton told a Brazilian bank in 2013. She added, quote, "We have to resist protectionism, other kinds of barriers to market access." Obviously, free trade has been a very controversial issue during the campaign, and this may not play well with Bernie supporters or voters in Ohio or Pennsylvania. Back to you, Neil.
All right, gentlemen, sorry for misstating your location. I was actually thinking about Bernie Sanders in Philadelphia, still campaigning for Hillary Clinton, obviously aware, and he had criticized Hillary Clinton on these speeches and saying one thing to investment bankers and another to people there. So I wonder how that's going to go down with those loyalists, but we'll see. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Emanuel Cleaver joins us now, Missouri Congressman, big Clinton backer, the Democrat, joins us now out of Kansas City. Congressman, if they can verify these emails are accurate, that they're not Russian plants, and it appears that Hillary Clinton has said one thing on trade deals, another on investment banks, behind closed doors versus to the public, would you feel like you were duped?
No, not necessarily. I think that the emails are legitimate in terms of this campaign. I think they certainly should be talked about. I think in part, some parts of the email actually coincide with things that she's saying now in terms of green energy and so forth. But I do think that there are some parts of that the important thing is the date in which she said it. If she didn't say that, if she's not duplicitous enough to say on the campaign trail with Bernie Sanders that she's against the TPP and then say something different to the bankers, then that's a problem. I don't think that's the case. But nonetheless,
but she does have a record on. But she does have a record on that deal. Once calling it the gold standard and disavowing it. So, and then talking about her husband's great economic years, in which trade deals played a big part, including NAFTA. So, can you have it both ways? Or is she so delighted, and her campaign delighted with this fixation on Donald Trump and what he said about women that it doesn't really matter?
Well, NAFTA was, I think, something that many of us consider to have been a mistake, including, I think, Hillary Clinton. There's no way that a president, Hillary Clinton, can sit in the Oval Office and say, all hands on board, we're going full speed ahead on TPP. Not after the primary campaign, not after the general election.
Congressman, do you trust her? Can you trust her word and what she says?
Well, I think, look, one of the things that hurt Donald Trump was the fact that he would say something and we could show, or the media would show just the opposite of what he had just said because there was video footage. And I think the same thing would be true if Hillary Clinton said, once she's sworn in as president, if that should happen on the 8th of November, well, I'm for TPP. I think that you'd have all kinds of problems in this country.
Well, you're right about that. Congressman, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for taking the time.
Good.
All right, Congressman Cleaver. All right, legally, you know what they want to do, right? They're looking at the possibility of finding a substitute for Trump. Good luck. Gary Johnson has a message for Republicans now trying to seek out an alternative to Donald Trump. What are you looking around so hard for? I'm the guy. Gary Johnson, coming up. All right, we're not understating this frantic rush among some. I stress some Republicans, more the so-called establishment type, led by the likes of John Thune of South Dakota and others, who are saying, the better part of valor, Mr. Trump, might be for you to step down as our nominee. Okay, then what? Easier said than done. For one thing, Donald Trump doesn't want to step down. And for another, there isn't a process in place to make sure they can find an alternative even if he did. Ken Gross is an election law attorney. He's pretty good on these matters. And Ken, legally, what do they do? What can they do?
Well, there's two scenarios. One where he doesn't step down and the other where he does step down. If a vacancy is created, even in this late part of the game, and it is late, there is a Rule 9 specifically in the Republican National Committee rules that will allow the party people to get together and pick a new nominee. If he, that could be death, it could be resignation, it could be other reasons. If he doesn't step down, as he's saying he won't, then the party under this rule doesn't have a clear path. It says in the event of a vacancy. Now there is some words in there that say that if he's incapacitated or otherwise, and the party could get creative and say, wait a minute, this is an otherwise, this guy is unacceptable, and stick a new person in there. But I think then we'd have some litigation leading right up to the election, and it's hard to imagine how that would play out.
Yeah, then I think about the 400,000 or 500,000 who've already voted in early voting, and it's to say nothing of the millions of ballots that are already out, the states across the country with his name on them. Then what?
That's exactly right. I mean, what I was just talking about was the RNC rules. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Then you look to the 50 states, and you've got early voting going on already. People have voted even for Hillary. They say, well, I voted for Hillary thinking that the Republican was going to be Trump. Now that you pick somebody else, I don't even want to vote for Hillary. Or, of course, people voted for Trump and said, I want my vote to count or not count, whatever. It's a mess. Of course, we don't actually vote for president. The electors do that. And that raises a whole question.
And that's where it can get messy, right, Ken? Because they meet after the election, and they can do a lot of things, right? If they don't like the results, I mean, they normally stamp whatever the election result is, but explain how that process could go.
Yeah, that would be fascinating. Of course, they'd have to get 270 electoral votes. The Republican, whoever it is, whether it's Donald Trump or some other person, would have to get a sufficient electoral votes. But if there was enough, and then, or maybe just Donald Trump is elected, and they don't like the fact that Donald Trump's been elected, these electors legally in December, when they sit down and vote, can vote for anybody they want. About half the states have no penalty. And then there are those that are called faithless electors, a term I love, who then can just vote for anybody, but they might be subject to penalty under law, although there's been no successful upholding of a case to punish a faithful elector.
Yeah, and with Horace Greeley in 1872, he died after the election, but before the electors met, there was a move in Congress to say, well, any Democrat going to him, it's a moot point, the guy's dead. But the election was over. Ulysses Grant won anyway. But we've never had anything like it,
No. This would be unprecedented and beyond anybody's comprehension, I think.
All right. Thank you very much, my friend, for stepping back and looking at the big picture. Ken Gross, an election law attorney. You can bet a number of folks are going to be sort of picking his brain, getting a sense of what is and is not possible. We're going to continue here from Washington University in St. Louis. This school is about to host its fifth presidential debate. They're very, very good at this, and you might have been able to hear some of the students behind me. They're very enthusiastic about this. And all this time I thought it was because I was here. That's apparently not the case. All right, we are just getting a statement now from Entertainment Tonight host Nancy O'Dell. Now, remember, she was the one that Donald Trump was referring 11 years ago as trying to woo her, and he failed, trying to hook up with a married woman. Bottom line, she didn't obviously find that too flattering, and saying this just now, politics aside, I'm saddened that these comments still exist in our society at all. When I heard the comments yesterday, it was disappointing to hear such objectification of women. The conversation needs to change because no female, no person should be the subject of such crass comments. whether or not the cameras are rolling. Everyone deserves respect, no matter the setting or gender. As a woman who has worked very hard to establish her career, and as a mom, I feel I must speak out with the hope that as a society, we will always strive to be better. Just to let you know as well that Mr. Trump has apologized for those remarks. No doubt they will be a big subject in the debate tomorrow here at this university, Washington University in St. Louis. All right, James Woolsey joins us right now. I do want to touch on some other issues with you, Ambassador, but right now the candidate you're backing is in a storm of controversy. Others in your party sort of urged him to step aside. He's not. What are your views on this?
Well, see, my party is still Democratic Party. I'm an old Scoop Jackson, Joe Lieberman Democrat, so I'm in a very odd position. I've worked for 2 Republican and 2 Democratic presidents, so I'm pretty hard to put into a category as a party member. I have no skill at all in getting inside the heads of American politicians. Sometimes I don't do too badly figuring out what terrorists and dictators are going to do, but I'm going to have to let other witnesses deal with the political situation here. I'm no expert on that.
That is a brilliantly deft political answer, Ambassador Touche. But let me ask you this. Because of the issues that you care about, let me flip it around a different way. Do you feel this gets to be such a distraction that no one will talk about them?
I don't know. I really don't know. I've never seen anything like this, at least been following American elections as an observer for all my life, and I've never seen anything like this.
Now, in the middle of all of this, we have these hacked emails that have come to light, Ambassador, showing Hillary Clinton in a bad light, sometimes reversing stances she took on trade agreements that she tells crowds she hates, but behind closed doors she likes, railing against the investment banking community in public, but behind closed doors and highly paid speeches, not quite the case. I guess the response has been, look, the Russians hacked this, focus more on the folks hacking and not on these emails that they're charging. What do you make of that and the fact that the Russians, if that's true, are apparently a lot more clever at this and adept than we thought?
The Russians are very good at this, and I think that it's possible to change emails. I mean, if you write a program that says change all the nows in this document to not and all the nots to now, you completely change the meaning of the document. So there are lots of ways you can fiddle with something that you've hacked. It doesn't have to stay pristine under the way hacking is done. I think, and the Russians are very devoted to this. They're skillful at it. They work hard at it. They have some crazy names for the GRU and KGB, military intelligence and civilian intelligence. The hackers are called Cozy Bear in one case and Fancy Bear in the other. But they are really good at this. If we organized things the way we did at the beginning of World War II, and we turned to the people who go to the hackers conferences in Nevada in the summer, the DEF CON and Black Hat, and put them together with the best that the National Security Agency could come up with and said, all right, you're a team, go after this particular country's infrastructure, its cyber infrastructure. We could make life absolutely miserable for virtually any place in the world. But as it is, we're victims, and we're not going back. We're not playing offense pretty much at all. We're just playing defense or sitting on the bench.
Well, if they're right, sir, and very quickly, it seems like Vladimir Putin and a lot of these Russians doing this, if that's the case, don't want Hillary Clinton to win. They're not for her.
It's hard for me to say, but whatever they are doing, I don't think it adds to our understanding to look at what they say. They are pretty much executing all the time that subtle diplomatic maneuver known as lying through their teeth.
Okay, there is that. Ambassador, I always learn something. Appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
The lying through their teeth thing, that's pretty subtle, but pretty direct. All right, when we come back, Gary Johnson, who has an offer to make to all you disenchanted Republicans out there. You don't have to reconvene and find a different nominee. You've already got one in him after this. All right, it is a beautiful day in St. Louis here at Washington University, a university that has hosted and will now host its 5th presidential debate. Very few institutions have had that honor. I don't know if they've ever. Pam, do we know ever? Or whatever, it's got to be up there. But they have the wherewithal to do this and pull it off seamlessly. And even for the St. Louis police chief who was with me earlier today, that is an edge that they have to sort of go through the security drill that folks here can do quite easily. And then they had the added drama and excitement around all of these comments back and forth of what Donald Trump said, the email dump with Hillary Clinton, and the heightened interest in this second presidential debate as well. But probably more pointed is what's happening with Donald Trump right now, revelations of that tape issued 11 years later, in which he made a number of disparaging comments about and to women. And already a number of Republicans have disavowed him. Gary Johnson says you don't have to meet and talk about coming up with an alternative nominee. He's your guy. He's the former 2-term New Mexico governor, Republican at that, former Republican presidential candidate, now the Libertarian presidential candidate. He joins us on the phone. So, Governor, your take is search no more, I'm here, right?
Well, you know, reaching out to Republicans that really don't feel represented by Donald Trump. Yeah, you don't have to conduct a search. Myself and Bill Weld, 2 former Republican governors serving in heavily Democrat states. We weren't wallflowers as governors. We were all about smaller governments and delivered in that in a really big way. So that's the pitch. And look, the comments Donald Trump made yesterday, turn the page. It's just another page. This does seem to be really on the horrific scale, though.
All right, but he has survived such crises before, and if he was controversial before, you're right, he's probably more controversial now. But it's not as if they're flocking to you, Governor. So your numbers are sinking. So what makes you think you're a good alternative?
Well, just that I have the experience. And look, tell the truth. You don't have to remember anything. Keep your word. Hypocrisy. I think that's the one unforgivable in life, saying one thing and doing another.
But I read from a lot of what your support is, though, Governor. I know what you're saying, but I get the feeling your running mate, Bill Weld, is more interested in stopping Donald Trump, maybe in electing Hillary Clinton, than he is getting you and him to Pennsylvania Avenue. What do you think?
Well, you know, Bill can take on that role. Let me take on the Hillary side of this, which are these emails
well,
that
he's
were
your
released.
running mate. You guys, he's your running mate. You've got to be on the same page, right?
Well, we are on the same page, Neil. Look, he can take on Trump. I'll take on Hillary. These emails that were released that, hey, wink and a nod.
He doesn't like Trump. He seems to like Hillary. That's what I'm saying. I mean, so you're not on the same page. You don't want either of those guys.
Well, we don't want either of those guys. We wouldn't be doing this if we didn't actually think that we have the chance to win. And right now, I think the Republican ticket is imploding. There's an honorable alternative to that. I think Hillary. This, you know, if these emails, if her statements, her speeches in front of Wall Street actually garner enough attention, well, you know what? That's somebody who says one thing one place and does another thing somewhere else. And crony capitalism, government does pick winners and losers, and Hillary's been part of that process for a long time, and I think that these revelations bear that out.
We'll watch very closely. Governor, thank you very, very much. Good chatting with you. Governor Gary Johnson, the Libertarian candidate for President of the United States, as we wrap things up here at Washington University. I don't think when they were coming up with the plans to have a presidential debate at this idyllic and beautiful campus, they envisioned some of the heat and controversy that would be going into that debate. And here they were worried about whether there would be enough viewers competing with a baseball game and a football game. I think that might be a moot point now. I think there's going to be a lot of interest.